In this video, I will use the Meowgician from Dragon Quest Monsters as a Pokémon in Fire Red. The Meowgician is playable in the original DQM2 and the 3DS remakes. He was designed as one of the fast-growing early-game monsters in DQM2, and thus he was given low stat ceilings that he can reach very quickly. As a Pokémon, he will have 57 base HP, 90 attack, 54 defense, 95 special attack, 66 special defense, and 66 speed, for a total of 428. This is pretty low even for Gen 3 standards, and that's after I bumped up a couple of his stats. Since the DQM games use lookup tables instead of a formula to calculate stat growth, the rate of which can vary greatly at different levels, the conversion won't be exactly faithful. Also, bigger index numbers don't always mean higher stats. Table 6 is not as bad as it looks, as it actually has the second fastest growth up to level 16, but it basically stops growing afterward. It's similar to 19 in this regard. His level up moves are based on his default Frizz and Whoosh skill set in the 3DS remake, plus the Mage Scroll from Joker 2, since he is a cat mage after all. The Mage set gets a lot of tier 2 spells, but also Frizz Cracker, which is the strongest single target skill in the game. Transform just because he learns Morph in the original. The basic Frizz and Whoosh set only gets up to tier 2 spells. However, considering his poor overall base stats, without anything over 100, I decided to throw him a bone, even though he's a cat, and give him a couple of tier 3 spells. I also gave him Nasty Plot for boosting, and Earth Power for stab. All basic solo run rules apply. I'm not using Hidden Power due to its luck-based nature in this generation, where you have no legitimate control over IVs. I will set up a Meowgician with perfect IVs and pre-applied EVs. He will have a neutral nature, because I can edit the base stats directly to make adjustments if necessary. The Beast family is basically the ground type in Pokémon, and he's a wizard, so Psychic is also a given. He gets the Frizzmeister trait in the 3DS remakes, which boosts the damage of all Frizz-based skills by 15% and halves their MP consumption. There's no MP in Pokémon, so I just made the boost slightly stronger at 20%, same as abilities like Reckless and Iron Fist, but still much weaker than Stab and things like Strong Jaw and Steelworker. Boosted moves are in caps. EV-wise, he might need max speed to outrun Alakazam and Aerodactyl. The rest will be split between HP and special attack, favoring the latter. He levels up very quickly in the original DQM2, so I put him in the 800,000 experience group. Although there is a 600,000 group, it levels up extremely slowly early on, and I don't want to grind. I was only level 15 by the time I faced Brock, as there are only a few trainers in the Viridian Forest, and the wild bugs there give abysmal experience. Fortunately, my ground typing resists Rock Tomb, which the AI will likely spam because it's treated as a speed debuff instead of a damaging attack. But unfortunately, all of my attacks are resisted by Rock, and I don't get stabbed for either fire or flying. Both of Brock's Pokémon have much lower special defense than physical defense, so Frizz would do higher damage, even though it has a weaker base power than Flame Slash. I also have higher special attack, but that's hardly relevant at this level. Flame Slash does have a 10% chance to burn, and unlike the original Gen 1, Brock doesn't have full heals, so it would speed things up if I got it. I didn't burn the Onyx, but it didn't matter since it has terrible HP and attack stats. I don't know what ailment or effect to associate with the flying type, so I just gave Gust/high critical hit ratio, like Air Cutter and Aeroblast. I could also make it lower accuracy since it does Whoosh and Zam damage in DQM, the latter is basically the Ghost type, but that'd make less sense. The second rival battle could be very annoying because of Sand Attack on his leading Pidgeotto, and I had no way to one-shot it due to lack of super effective moves or stab. But luckily, I was already getting pretty over-leveled thanks to my experience group, and I didn't miss a single attack. I even landed a critical hit on his Squirtle, which I don't know why he didn't evolve, but it only had Water Gun anyway and couldn't do a lot. His Abra was just free experience since it couldn't attack before evolving. Misty was another reason why I opted for max speed EV. Her Starmie has 115 base speed and knows the super effective Water Pulse, and my special defense is well below average. Again, my limited moveset provided very narrow coverage, so the best move I had against her was actually Secret Power from the TM. Water Pulse has a 20% chance to confuse, but the game gives you a Persim Berry in a crevice before Mount Moon, so I equipped it just in case. Secret Power has a 30% chance to paralyze when used indoors, but I didn't get it, and instead I got confused by Water Pulse. That was exactly where the Persim Berry would come in handy, as missing a turn hitting myself could easily lose me the battle. The Mage Scroll in Joker 2 contains a bunch of tier 2 spells like Swoosh, Crackle, and Boom. All of these spells are kind of bad before tier 4, so I just gave them 55 base power like Icy Wind, but without any added effects. The single target ones like Frizzle and Zapple are stronger, so I gave them 65. The rival battle on the ship is a complete joke. His team was only 2 levels higher than the last time, although all of his Pokémon have evolved. I did fight most of the trainers on the ship, since my stats were lacking and I needed all the experience I could get, and so I was pretty overleveled. But don't forget, you can already catch level 29 or 31 Dugtrio in the cave just outside the harbor, and they are not even rare. The electric gym here is also a piece of cake compared to Watson in Ruby and Sapphire, or the original yellow version for that matter. The cherry berry was unnecessary, since I was immune to electric and had no contact moves. By the way, Meowth is the pickup Pokémon in these games, and it's the only way to farm berries before the post-game. You can also get rare candies and PP ups from pickup. Surge's team is just too underleveled at this point, and he even has a level 18 Pokémon for some stupid reason. They should have just given him a level 28 Raichu with Thunderbolt and Mega Kick like in Yellow, and that might cause some trouble if you didn't catch a Dugtrio. But anyhow, I'm a ground type, so he couldn't do anything. You'll naturally be overleveled for the tower rival fight in a solo run, due to the number of unskippable trainers along the way. He replaced the awful Raticate with the 2 starter types he didn't pick, and he would have a Gyarados here if he didn't pick Squirtle. Although the basic Frizz and Whoosh set doesn't get tier 3 spells in any of the DQM games, I decided to give the Meowgician Coffres anyway to make up for his poor base stats. I made it 90 power, so it's basically a worse flamethrower without the chance to burn, but again, all of these spells are quite bad in DQM. It does receive a 20% boost from Frizzmeister, but there's no stab. Erica was easy even though I was weak to grass. I had such a massive level advantage, and Coffres simply one-shot everything on her team. I'm sure Frizzle would have done it as well, or even Crackle or Swoosh, since none of her Pokémon, except the Vileplume, had good special defense. Koga's gym presented a huge bump in level, but fortunately, the bikers on the cycling road have a lot of evolved Pokémon that give loads of experience. I gave the Meowgician Earth Power just to have one proper stab move. I originally gave him Ridge Razor or Cockraggle, which is the tier 4 Earth spell in DQM, but its decreased priority made it too clunky to use in Pokémon, where most battles are 1v1. Also, I gave him the tier 3 Kaboom, considering tier 2 spells are a bit too weak at this point, even as filler. I equipped a Pecha Berry for poison, as although I have Earth Power, 3 of Koga's Pokémon have the Levitate ability that makes them immune to ground. However, that turned out to be unnecessary, since his Weezing was one-shot by a neutral Coffres. I don't think gym leaders have EVs in these remakes, or if they do, they might not have perfect IVs. I could have also used the TM for Psychic, but I wanted to save it for later, and Fire and Ground have much better coverage anyway. The rival battle at Sylph Company wasn't hard either. The only potential problem was Sand Attack on his Pidgeot, but thankfully, he didn't use it this time. His levels are lower than Koga's because you can do Sylph Company and the Psychic Gym before the Poison Gym. I usually do Koga's Gym first simply because the bikers on Cycling Road give a lot more EXP than those Rocket Grunts. For whatever reason, his Blastoise in this fight still uses Water Gun as its only stab move. It might not naturally learn any other water moves besides Hydro Pump in this gen, but he would have at least the Water Pulse TM. By the way, I made Kaboom the Dragon type because the Dragon Lore set is upgraded with the Tier 3 Bang set in Joker 3, and a lot of monsters in the Wonder family are weak to Bang. The Rock type would also make sense, since all the Rock-based skills in DQM do Bang damage, but I'd rather leave Rock to those specific skills. Anyway, the Giovanni fight was a piece of cake. 3 of his Pokémon were weak to ground, and his Kangaskhan was at such a low level that it couldn't do anything. I thought Nasty Plot was a Gen 3 move, but it's actually from Gen 4. It's just a clone of Tail Glow in these generations, and it will be my only boosting move besides Calm Mind. I might replace it with Calm Mind later for the special defense boost, but I shouldn't have to, since my special defense isn't bad enough to get one-shot by things like Hydro Pump. Sabrina's Pokémon have pretty much the same levels as Koga's, and I'm a Psychic type myself, so she couldn't do much. None of her Pokémon know Shadow Ball either, probably because it was originally physical in Gen 3, and moves like Dark Pulse and Bug Buzz didn't exist. I will save the Calm Mind TM for now, just in case I have trouble surviving in the final champion battle. Blaine was another easy win. He only had fire types, and I had Stab Earth Power to hit their ground weakness. I was also starting to get a huge level lead, thanks to my EXP group, but I will need levels for the league since I only have one good stat. Giovanni received a weird nerf in the remake. He had a Rhydon in the original red and green, but here it was replaced by a second Rhyhorn. I really don't see any point to this nerf, considering they have the exact same typing with the same lopsided stat spread. Sure, Rhydon has huge attack and defense, but its special defense is so bad that any water or grass move can easily one-shot it, and you'd already have Surf. Also pointless is Rhydon's evolution in Gen 4. Rhyperior only received 10 extra points in each stat, except the one it needs the most, which is speed, and Solid Rock wouldn't help it survive special hits to its double weaknesses. This is the last rival battle before the league, but half of the Pokémon on his team have still not evolved. He still leads with a Pidgeot that knows Sand Attack just to be annoying, and it's actually the biggest threat on his team, as my stats really don't allow me the leeway to miss an attack. I had to take the chance and set up Nasty Plot on his Pidgeot, since I had no way to one-shot his Blastoise otherwise. But luckily, it only used Feather Dance, which didn't affect me at all as I had no physical moves. I should have set up on his Blastoise instead, because it still uses Water Gun as its only stab move, even though there's the Water Pulse TM and the Surf HM. It might have Ice Beam here though, so it might not be a good idea after all. The Mage Scroll in Joker 2 contains Frizz Cracker, which is the strongest single-target spell in the game, and does both Frizz and Crack damage. Dual-type moves weren't a thing until Flying Press in Gen 6, so the best I could do was to make it a fire move that freezes or an ice move that burns. I opted for the former and gave it only 1 PP, but that turned out to be a mistake due to inbuilt game mechanics, as you'll see later. Here are my stats and moves going into the Pokémon League. My only good stat is Special Attack, since my physical attack is useless, and I had to max out my speed to outrun Lance's Aerodactyl, assuming it also has max speed EV. My moves don't provide me with much coverage, as I need Nasty Plot for boosting. Frizz Cracker is just a gimmick, but it will be the only way to allow me the time to set up against Lance and Green. That is, provided it works as intended. Lorelei wasn't any threat even though I'm weak to both water and ice, simply because her leading Dugong doesn't like to attack. It almost always opens with Hail, which is pointless because it does not boost Ice type's defense like some people assume, and it doesn't even use Blizzard. This basically gives me a free turn to set up Nasty Plot and proceed to sweep her team. Interestingly, you could soft lock yourself in the original red and blue if you used a poison or fighting type against her Dugong and picked the move Rage. Gen 1 Rage auto-attacks for the entire battle and disable switching, and Rest was assigned the Psychic type. Due to poor AI programming, it would only use Rest against anything weak to Psychic, and Rage was so weak that even a level 100 Machamp wouldn't be able to 3-shot it. Enemies didn't have PP in Gen 1, so it would rest forever while you do chip damage with Rage. Bruno is the joke member of the Kanto Elite Four. He has 2 Onix, which is one of the worst Pokemon in the game, and not even fighting type. And where's Primeape and Poliwrath? They aren't exactly good Pokemon either, but still much better than Onix. Besides, Primeape can learn Overheat, and Poliwrath can learn Psychic for coverage. Speaking of Psychic, I totally forgot about the TM for it, but I didn't need it for Bruno anyway, or Agatha for that matter. I just equipped a Lum Berry for Agatha and set up Nasty Plot on her first Ganger, which has the rather weak Shadow Punch as its only damaging move, and it uses its much lower physical attack. It usually opens with Confuse Ray or Double Team, followed by Toxic, so the Lum Berry should buy me a free turn. Her entire team was a series of easy one-shots after a special attack boost. Lance was the problem for me. Since I forgot about the Psychic TM, I had nothing good against his flying types that resist fire, especially the Dragonite whose Outrage now does physical damage. Even Bite from his Gyarados would hurt due to my dark weakness. My plan was to equip a Lepa Berry, use Frizz Cracker on his leading Gyarados for the freeze, which should prompt him to heal, and then use the chance to max out my special attack. However, the problem was twofold. First was that a resisted Koffers might not be enough to one-shot his Dragonite, even at +6 stages. And second was that Frizz Cracker wouldn't work as I intended due to game mechanics. As you can see, the Gyarados would thaw out as soon as it got frozen. At first, I thought it was just bad luck, but I tried it many times, and it always thawed out immediately. This was because a frozen Pokemon is programmed to defrost as soon as it's hit by a fire-type move, and additional effects are rolled before the damage is done. What this means is that fire moves that freeze will not work. I could have changed Frizz Cracker to an ice-type move that burns, but I decided to try something that wasn't possible without the physical special split patch. I changed it to a typeless move that freezes, so it would do neutral damage to everything. This actually makes sense, as Frizz Cracker is practically unresisted in Joker 2 due to its fire and ice damage types. Typeless damaging moves wouldn't work without the patch because the neutral type wasn't assigned a damage category, considering Curse was the only move of that type. Custom typeless attacks would only do 1 or 2 damage no matter the base power, because the game would use 0 for the attack stat in the damage formula, which is multiplication based. Anyway, it works properly now, and I kept its 20% boost from Frizzmeister since it's still a Frizz-based skill. I also remembered the Psychic TM this time, and I replaced Kafrizz because I thought Fire wouldn't be that useful anymore. But in hindsight, I should have replaced Earth Power instead, as my decision almost bit me at the end. I got a high damage roll with Frizz Cracker against Lance's Gyarados, which was kind of unfortunate since it didn't give me a turn to set up Nasty Plot. But weirdly, his Aerodactyl seemed to have max HP or special defense EVs, as it survived on yellow. It was 2 levels higher, but Gyarados has much higher base special defense. Either way, the freeze status stuck around this time, giving me a free turn to boost, so the rest of his team was a clean sweep with my Stab Psychic. Green's Pidgeot has always been the biggest threat in the champion battle, thanks to its Sand Attack and Feather Dance. I was hoping that it could survive a Frizz Cracker and give me a turn to use Nasty Plot, but apparently, it had neither HP nor special defense EVs. I also made a stupid mistake by using my second Frizz Cracker PP on his Arcanine, which would most definitely not have any defensive EVs. This meant I had to eat a Hydro Pump and set up on his Blastoise instead, because there was no way I could one-shot it, or his Executor, without Nasty Plot. The Executor was where my decision to replace Kafrizz almost cost me. I forgot the original version of it was a Psychic type, and that meant both of my stab moves were resisted. I got extremely lucky there as it missed an Egg Bomb, or it would definitely have taken me out. So, in conclusion, this has been a fun run, although many mistakes were made. What I really didn't expect was that the only stab move I gave to the Meowgician actually ended up carrying me through the run. I guess ground does provide coverage against many common Pokémon in Gen 1. I'll try a different cat monster next time, one that wasn't in the original GBC games. Stat conversion will be a challenge, but I have an idea based on the stat ceilings in Joker 2 or Terry's Wonderland 3D. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.